We're live on DSTV channel 421, GoTV channel 144. This is Joy News Prime. With me, Samuel Kojo Brace. Our top stories are no cash, no medicine. The decision from the Ghana National Chamber of Pharmacy, as it says, it can no longer operate on credit basis.
Credit policy for all buyers in the industry. All transactions with immediate effect shall be on cash basis until the economy stabilizes.
We have details of what could potentially collapse the national health insurance scheme and render healthcare system challenged. Now, also in this bulletin, agitation on the labor front as public sector workers fight government's plan to restructure domestic debt as part of effort to get a deal with the IMF. Some public sector workers, led by ClockSAG, are sounding the warning.
If the government was to pursue the restructuring of Ghana's debt by touching pension funds placed in government securities, it will be tantamount to deceit of benefits envisaged under the three-tier pension scheme.
On Wednesday, the Ghana Registered Nurses and Midwives Association also warned government not to touch their Tier 2 pension funds of its members.
Monies pumped into certain ventures and the monies have not been returned back into the scheme. So we are not expecting that our Tier 2 contributions will be touched in any such ways. It should be left for us the way it is so that our members can benefit at the.
Also, teacher unions kick against appointment of Dr. Eric Nkansa as Director General of the Ghana Education Service, labeling him as unqualified.
We are calling on the President to rescind this decision that the gentleman who is appointed is not qualified by any standard to be the Director General of the Ghana Education Service.
We have details as they call for the immediate rescission of the appointment.
Contrary to that, the gentleman who was appointed yesterday is not a teacher. He is a banking officer who was a special assistant in the office of the minister.
Now, the Ghana National Chamber of Pharmacy says it will no longer operate on a credit basis. This means persons who supply medicines and those who sell the same would have to find the cash to pay or run out of stocks. This is expected to have dire consequences for Ghana's national health insurance scheme that operates mainly on a credit basis. The chamber says the inflation rate, fast depreciation of the cedi and high interest rate has rendered business unprofitable. There is more in the following report.
The chamber, comprising Pharmaceutical Manufacturing Association of Ghana and Pharmaceutical Importers and Wholesalers Association of Ghana, say their business is on the verge of a collapse.
Current inflation rate stands at 37.2%. And it will surprise you to know, as we speak, some medicines are up over 100% because the cedi has depreciated more than 100%. This obviously brings about increase in the cost of goods and services by the same quantum, which we are not happy at all about it. The cost of essential accessories and other inputs needed for pharmaceutical operations therefore becomes affected. Interest rates. Interest rates on loans contracted from commercial banks as at end of last year was approximately 27% and currently stands at 35%. On a compounding scale. This means charges on loans to finance operations have escalated. Additionally, loans from commercial banks attract an extra 5% penal rates on default.
The chamber has therefore resolved to transact business on purely cash basis.
Therefore, call for an immediate action to save the industry. Decisions. No credit policy for all buyers in the industry. All transactions with immediate effect shall be on cash basis until the economy stabilizes. I want to repeat. No credit policy for all buyers in the industry. All transactions with immediate effect shall be on cash basis until the economy stabilizes. Recommendation: the NHIS and all private health insurance companies are encouraged to give accredited facilities seed funds to buy medicines on cash for supplies to patients under the schemes. All end-user institutions, thus retail pharmacies, private hospitals, and clinics, are encouraged to secure loans from banks to buy medicines on cash. The Ministry of Finance and Economic Planning should release funds immediately to pay for long-standing debts over 9 months and to push to clear all overdue debts.
The group, meanwhile, expects government to immediately settle outstanding debts as a first step towards keeping businesses afloat. It is not clear what the immediate impact will be on the sale of medicines at various outlets.
Our president of the Ghana Medical Association says this may be the beginning of the collapse of the NHIS.
I'll tell you, health insurance would pay facilities. Sometimes it takes about 6 months, 7 months, 8 months before facilities are paid. And so it means that you have to virtually procure these medicines on credit. And then once health insurance reimburses, you go back to pay. Can you imagine holding somebody's money in this era of Ghana for 7 months, 6 months before you go and pay the person? So for example, and there is no avenue for you to pay interest rates. Once it's locked in, it's locked in. So for example, if for you purchase, let's say a drug 6 months ago, which was costing even 1,000 Ghana cedis, in terms of the dollar terms, 6 months ago, maybe 1,000 Ghana cedis may have been something like $100. But currently, as we speak, I am even exaggerating, but then you get up after 6 months, and if it's 20, you still pay this person 1,000 Ghana cedis, but in terms of dollars, you have paid the person $50. And that is the reality. What it will mean is that hospitals now will need to get money from wherever to pay physically before they can get the drugs. That would mean two things. Either we charge the patients so that we can pay upfront, or hospitals take loans. So seriously, I don't know the way out, but I think the implications are there. We need to have a bigger dialogue, but the major dialogue for me is to how to stabilize this economy as quickly as possible. Otherwise, we are in big trouble. And if we don't do that, certainly you can't blame those who are selling because they are losing their capital. And it is quite worrying and troubling. And if we are not careful, this is the beginning of the collapse of the National Health Insurance Scheme. And so we need to quickly look at how we can stabilize the economy and curtail some of these things that are happening. Across board, everything is escalating.
Now, William Edum-Ado is president of the Pharmaceutical Importers and Wholesalers Association, and he joins us on phone on this development. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us. He is on Zoom with us. Now, to what extent have you engaged government on these issues? Kindly unmute so we can understand what you're telling us, sir.
Yeah, good evening once again.
Great.
To you and your viewers. Yeah, thanks for the opportunity as well. With the government engagement, most of the suppliers have been having different discussions with the National Health Insurance and other stakeholders involved. And this is not something that has just come up. It's been persistent several years till now. Usually, when the economy is stable, you are able to absorb some of these things because you have the patient at heart. You realize that the pharma industry is one industry that over the years has been very liberal in giving credit facility along the whole chain of the pharma industry, giving credit to the retailer, giving credit to the hospitals, whether tertiary or primary, or giving credits all over. But over time, we've realized that some institutions started abusing this leniency and also goodwill. And unfortunately for us, in this current situation, we can't go along that business model again. Because, as you may know, values are coming down. And by the time you receive your money, the money can't even buy the same product that you bought again. So you realize that we can't go along the same tangent and the same liberal model that is not helping whether you're importing or you're a manufacturer. Because assuming you're a manufacturer, you have to import raw material. You import, you produce the product, you give it to whether a primary or tertiary institution, and the person decides or the institutions to pay as and when the institutions feel like paying. And I don't know any business model that runs successful business on that model. But as I said, because we have the patient at heart, we've been using this model for several years.
Okay.
But
we also heard you talk about the fact of, debt. Do we have a sense of how much government is owing your members, and how soon do you expect payment to be made as you're asking for?
Currently, I don't know the figures because, as I said, they pay as and when they have to pay, but not according to any timelines. Currently, there's nothing that you buy in this country virtually on a timeline that you don't know when you are going to pay. But here we are in the pharma industry. That's what is happening. And we are only saying that for now and henceforth, it will be better if we want to sustain the industry. Because can you imagine that around the COVID area, if institutions didn't have enough medicines, it would have been disastrous.
Well, so we do not even have a sense of the range within which government is owing your members?
Several months. I know some, it's as long as 6 to 9 months. Because they'll tell you it's a process. It has to come from the institutions. At times it goes back, But the bottom line is, if you are going to buy any other item apart from medicines, normally you even go for a pro forma invoice.
Okay. All right.
Before you write your check, before you go and pay even some of the companies will make sure that the check clear before they supply. But when it comes to medicine, you are supposed to send it, once you win the award, you are supposed to send it to wherever they want you to send it, into their warehouse.
So what should happen, as we all know that in this situation we are in, government may come to you to say, we do not have the funds. What should happen for you to rescind this particular decision of yours?
I think they should just pay up. Having the funds is one thing, and paying up is another.
Grateful.
Because
I'm grateful. Grateful to you, sir, for joining us. William Edum Addo is president of the Pharmaceutical Chamber. Now let's broaden this discussion by bringing in the Coalition on NGOs in Health. Bright Emisa Nyako is the national chairman of the coalition. Thank you so much for joining us. What do you make of this development as we're in now? Kindly unmute so we can follow you, sir. We still cannot hear you. Kindly unmute so we can hear what you're telling us.
Very well. Can you hear me now?
Yes, very clear now. Let's hear you.
Good. So good evening to your viewers and listeners. I think the Ghana National Pharmaceutical Commission they have a concern, a genuine concern, all right. But I think taking an entrenched decision at this very material moment of hardship in Ghana, it's very disturbing and worrying to all of us. If they consider their decision at this moment, then it's like they are not trying to genuinely have Ghanaians and, for that matter, vulnerable people in the society at heart.
No, but you heard that the man was telling us some of their members are owed up to 9 months. How do you expect businesses to still be in existence when they are owed up until that particular period? It's a lot of money in here.
Yes, I agree with you, but you also agree that there's no way we can continue to do this without, holding a dialogue together and then holding a very good discussion, which will come to a very win-win situation where everybody becomes happy and then the people of Ghana are also adequately served. Is it the problem of the citizens in Ghana who are going to face these challenges that to be punished unfairly and unduly at this material moment. It is not anybody's fault that they have not been paid. It is the system that has accrued this hardship on all of us.
Okay.
And it demands
so on that basis,
how
do you then think, or how do you suggest the subscribers to the NHIS must be protected in this circumstance?
So in a matter of urgency, I think the NHIS and then this GNCP should come into a compromise and dialogue. They should find a convenient situation where they will be able to come to a win-win situation and then free Ghanaians out of this hardship. Okay. If they take an entrenched situation of punishing us this way, it is going to have an escalating effect on all of us health and then concerns.
Okay.
There's going to be increase in mortality. People are going to resort to herbal medicine and so on and forth. People are now going to do personal medications and so many other things. So the way forward is actually to dialogue with the NHIA and then the ministries to find a means to getting this addressed, and then all Ghanaians become free as we move forward.
I'm grateful to you, Bright Mr. Nyako, that he is the national chairman of the NGOs in health. Now joining us on the telephone line is a ranking member on the Health Committee of Parliament, Kwabena Kando. Thanks very much for joining us, sir. This decision by the Chamber of Pharmacy will spell doom for majority of Ghanaians who rely on the NHIS for health care. What do you think must happen now to avert the potential impact that we are all seeing?
Thank you very much. Let me say good evening to your listeners. You know, if there's a crisis like this nature, it is very important to appreciate the fact of the issue so that the person on the other hand, even if you go into negotiations, would also have the patience to listen to you. The fact of the matter is that the government is simply being unreasonable and being wicked to the healthcare sector. Okay? What is quite disheartening is that the very people who are going to bear the brand of this particular decision are the ordinary Ghanaians. Unfortunately, the president is not going to suffer. The finance minister is not going to suffer. The health minister is not going to, because they can afford. That is what pains me. And I mean, let's face it. You know the deteriorating nature of our economy at the moment. You know the exchange rate. Something, I mean, if you needed about $10,000 in 2021, you needed about 58,000 Ghana cedis to be able to get $10,000. Today, as I speak to you, you need more than 139,000 Ghana cedis to be able to get $10. You know about the hikes in the utility prices. You know about the exchange, what do you call it, the interest rate. You know all these factors obviously will affect the industry. And then you think that, I heard you ask the question, what if government does not have money? We don't have the money. Government cannot say they do not have the money. And you see, this national health insurance money is one of the most reliable money we can ever have in this country because it's paid upfront. Oh. It is not as though we are asking government to go and look for money to come and fix the situation. No. We pay national health insurance levies, and the law says that once you collect the national health insurance levy, you must lodge the money into the national health insurance account or fund within 30 days. So ask yourself, government is owing in excess of 2 billion Ghana cedis to the service provided. So where is the money government has collected? We can't simply speak this truth, and we are beating about the bush.
Okay.
I mean, this is very pathetic.
So once you know that the monies are paid upfront and therefore they have to be made available, what will you do as a committee to help the process and find solutions?
We are doing everything about it. Government is simply being wicked. And I'm using these words because when it comes to the health sector, we should not miss words. This is about the health of the people. Mm. We have been doing press conferences upon press conferences and telling government to pay their money. This is not the first time this is happening. I am telling you the truth. And so before we even start to even go into roundtable discussions or negotiations, government should do the needful. We should be able to clear their arrears.
Okay.
So that we can even say, okay, when we have got it to, please give us credit on, let's say, 2-month basis or 1-month basis. But for you to tell me that I should go and negotiate with somebody we owe in excess of 9 months, and given these economic conditions, let's be realistic, my brother. In fact, it is even in our interest, okay, to see this industry survive so that they don't collapse and they'll be able to supply what we need as a country. It is our interest. Very, very important.
Honorable, I'm grateful that you could join us.
You're
Kabna Mitakando is the ranking member on the Health Committee of Parliament. Now, teacher unions are kicking against the appointment of Dr. Eric Nkansa as the new Director General of the Ghana Education Service. Dr. Nkansa's appointment was announced by the presidency after Professor Opoku Amankwa was sacked and asked to return to his previous station at KNUST. Speaking at a news conference in Accra, President of the National Association of Graduate Teachers, NAGRAT, Angel Kagbonu, said teacher unions want someone who's a career education professional to be appointed instead.
Developments that annoyed and surprised all of us, that a new Director General is being appointed to the Ghana Education Service. The authority to appoint Director General is the President of the land. Unfortunately, contrary to what the teacher unions indicated, that we want a Director General who is a professional teacher, who have passed through the mill, who can bring his knowledge, skills, and influence to bear on the activities of teachers and non-teachers in the Ghana Education Service. Contrary to that, the gentleman who was appointed yesterday is not a teacher. He is a banking officer who was a special assistant in the office of the minister and has been appointed as the Director General of the Ghana Education Service. We are not happy with this development. It is as if we don't have professionals and well-educated people who have gone through the mill in education in this country to run education. It is as if we are being told that we educationists in the Ghana Education Service are no good to manage education in this country.
Now, the teacher unions say the appointment must be rescinded immediately so as not to disrupt industrial harmony.
We are calling on the President to rescind this decision that the gentleman who is appointed is not qualified by any standard to be the Director General of the Ghana Education Service. If you look at the history of Director Generals in the Ghana Education Service, they are either senior officers within Ghana Education Service or professors from universities who have education background. And we can take them one after the other and you know and see and know their credentials. The gentleman who has been appointed is qualified as a banking officer, have done some small stints of teaching with Kumasi Polytechnic those days. When the minister was appointed as minister, he became a special assistant to the minister and do not have any credentials or qualification to be Director General of the Ghana Education Service. We are calling for his removal. He is not qualified to be Director General of the Ghana Education Service. Right. And his presence will not motivate professionals who have been in this service for more than 20 to 30 years and have risen to higher rank within the Ghana Education Service.
In case it's not removed, are you not going to abide by any instructions from him?
We would meet and take actions to indicate to the public that we have more qualified people within Ghana Education Service or within education in this country who can manage and superintend over education in the Ghana Education Service.
Now, agitation on the labor front as public sector workers fight government's plan to restructure domestic debt as part of effort to get a deal with the IMF. Some public sector workers led by Clocksag are sounding the warning, and that's what is to come after the break.
If the government was to pursue the restructuring of Ghana's debt by touching pension funds placed in government securities, it will be tantamount to deceit of benefits and
Welcome back. Now, government's effort to reach an agreement with the IMF before the 2023 budget is presented to Parliament is facing a serious threat with stiff opposition from some labor unions seeking to prevent a domestic debt restructuring. Now, IMF has made debt restructuring a major prerequisite to giving Ghana a bailout. But government's plan to restructure domestic debt in particular is being met with fierce opposition from some labor unions whose Tier 2 pension funds are in government securities. The Civil and Local Government Staff Association of Ghana, CLOCSAG, Ghana Medical Association, the teacher unions, and a host of other public sector unions want government to keep up their contributions. Dr. Isaac Bampo-Addo is Executive Secretary of CLOCSAG.
If the government was to pursue the restructuring of Ghana's debt by touching pension funds placed in government securities, it will be tantamount to deceit of benefits envisaged under the 3-tier pension scheme. Again, it would violate the provisions on preservation and protection of pension funds under the National Pensions Act 208 and 766, Section 1899 and 102. For the avoidance of doubt, these sections are quoted below. For the purpose of preserving accrued benefits in a scheme, A trustee of a scheme shall not pay or dispose any part of accrued benefits to a scheme member or another person except in accordance with the provisions of this Act. And B, an employee or self-employed person shall not have a right or entitlement to accrue benefit except in accordance with this Act. It is important to refer to the provision of accrued benefits defined under Section 102. That 1, the accrued benefits of a member in an occupational pension scheme shall not be attached in execution of a judgment debt or be used as a charge, a pledge, a lien, or be transferred, assigned, or alienated by or on behalf of that member. A disposition that is contrary to subsection 1 is void. The occupational pension schemes are managing the Tier 2 funds effectively and efficiently, and have grown the Tier 2 funds that would allow the schemes to pay better lump sum to its contributors on retirement.
The unions say any attempt to restructure the debt is illegal.
If government will want to touch these funds that are privately managed, it will be tantamount to the government reaping where it has not sown. At this point, the forum will wish to point out that the decision to place high proportion of Tier 2 funds into government securities was due to the fact that government paid all the temporary pension fund account, TPFA, at Bank of Ghana in government securities to the pension schemes. The forum is appalled at the composition of the Consultative Committee on the Financial Sector Stakeholder Engagement. The chairman, Mr. Albert Essien, was the same person who spearheaded a special purpose vehicle, that's Ghana Amalgamated Trust, entrusted to support selected indigenous banks that was unable to meet the new increased minimum capital requirements by the Bank of Ghana. One of the options which was pursued by GATT in this exercise was to salvage the banks, was to use the Tier 2 pension funds. It is therefore obvious that the chairman of the consultative team, Mr. Albert Essien, who was a prominent member of GATT, will be more disposed in recommending the use of Tier 2 funds as part of the restructuring of Ghana's debt agenda. In any way, the success or otherwise of GATT has not been made public, nor has the cost of services of GATT been made known. The chairman's involvement in GATT and chairman of the Ghana Stock Exchange, among others, make him an interested party, and it could be deemed as conflict of interest, as his output would be skewed towards the interest of government. Past credits in the custody of state that ought to be transferred to public sector schemes are still in a limbo. For all these years, NHIS has not been able to compute the amount that ought to be transferred to each of the public sector schemes.
Now let's still stay on the labor front because the Ghana Registered Nurses and Midwifery Association is asking government not to touch the Tier 2 pension funds of its members. President of the association, Perpetual Ofori Ampofo, says any such interferences with their funds will make their members worse off. Speaking on the sidelines of the annual general meeting of the Health Sector Occupational Pension Scheme, Perpetual Ampofo indicated that the association will not countenance any decision made on their pension funds without their concurrence. Richard Kojo has more in the following report.
The Health Sector Occupational Pension Scheme started in 2012 with an asset under management of 2,040 Ghana cedis, mainly from the internally generated funds made up of the staff's contribution, and grew over to 2.1 billion at the end of 2021. Addressing the media on the sidelines of the annual general meeting of the scheme, President of the Ghana Registered Nurses and Midwives Association, Perpetual Ofori Ampofo, asks government not to touch their Tier 2 pension scheme lest it incurs the wrath of their members.
The beneficiary, such that when you go on retirement, your money is safe. What have we been seeing in the past, even with our Tier 1 contributions with SNIT? Investments that have gone bad and all those investments or monies pumped into certain ventures and the monies have not been returned back into the scheme. So we are not expecting that our Tier 2 contributions will be touched in any such ways. It should be left for us the way it is so that our members can benefit at the end of the day. Nobody can use the media to communicate such things. I think when it comes to the forum, the chairman of the forum has said it and time and again. Even the recent media interviews that you had with him, he said it very clearly. If there is anything, engagement should be done. We have to sit and discuss some of these things. Nobody, not the Minister of Finance or any government apparatus, must sit and take those decisions which will come back to affect our members who are contributors of the various Tier 2 schemes.
Deputy Employment and Labour Relations Minister Bright Rekubrobe assured government owes it a duty to ensure that no retiree is worse off or suffer unjustly.
This annual general meeting should engender consensus building around happenings on the pensions front vis-a-vis the global economic realities. We owe it a duty to ensure that no retiree is worse off or suffer unjustly in the current situation. The Board of Trustees has a greater responsibility to fashion out innovative approaches that would maximize investment returns of members' contributions. Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen, permit me to use this platform to urge members of the Health Services Occupational Pension Scheme to sensitize our brothers and sisters who operate in the informal economy and do not have access to any pension scheme. Informal economy operators should be encouraged to take advantage of the 3-tier pension scheme to ensure that their retirement security.
Deputy Minister of Health, Tina Mensah, encouraged members of the scheme and the general public to cultivate the habit of savings.
Taking inspiration from Peter Lane, I quote, "In the long run, it is not how much money you make that determines your future prosperity, but how much of that money you put to work by saving it and investing it," unquote. As an advice to the members of the scheme, it is important that savings is done before spending, otherwise there will be nothing to save after consumption.
The board chairman of the Board of Trustees of the scheme, Dr. Derek Amwati, intimated that even though the National Pensions Regulatory Authority was not present at the event, the authority was in full support of what the scheme was doing. The scheme covers all employers of the Ghana Health Service, teaching hospitals, faith-based health facilities who are on government payroll, and employees paid from the internally generated funds. Richard Kojo, Joy News, Accra.
Now, the Greater Accra Regional Security Council is continuing with its demolition of illegal structures at the Ramsar site at Sakumono. The Deputy Land and Natural Resources Minister, Benito Usubio, says they won't spare any prominent person whose structure has been built at the Ramsar site at Sakumono. Richard Kojo witnessed the second day of demolition where the Regional Minister, the Deputy Land and Natural Resources Minister, and the Forestry Commission boss landed at the site with a chopper to supervise the demolition exercise.
Sounds of earth-moving equipment tearing down the walls at the Sakumono Ramsar site. The Greater Accra Regional Minister, the Deputy Land and Natural Resources Minister, the Forestry Commission boss, and others landed at the site with a chopper to supervise the demolition. Deputy Land and Natural Resources Minister Benito Usubio explains how the operation has been structured.
Phase 1 is to remove the fence walls of, some people that they are called speculators who have just decided just to erect fences within the flood-prone area. You see no structures in. Those are the ones that are going down first. The second phase, which will start from tomorrow throughout the weekend, will be the Forestry Commission officials assisted by the police and the military, marking out those structures that are in the waterway. For instance, where we are standing, they will all be marked out clearly and boldly with the inscription to be demolished. On Monday, there will be a press statement, a press conference, because by then we would have an idea of the entire number. As you can see, in fact, there is no building here that will be affected that is habitable. If you look around, because we want you to know that we know what we are doing. All those structures are all almost not habitable now.
He says no prominent individual whose structure is found at the enclosed space would be spared.
People are speculating that you are going to choose and pick some of the structures that are going to be put.
Perfect. I understand you. That is why we are saying that we have to actually go around and mark. And you can be with them. Move along with them. They will show you the new boundary. And beyond which any other structure that is there will be marked. And then you can tell, you can tell for yourself whether it's going to be pick and choose.
The exercise continues on Friday. Reporting for Joy News, Richard Kojo, Accra.
You're still watching the Joy News Prime. We'll take a quick break. When we return, we'll bring you the latest information on the National Science and Maths Quiz. Stay with us. Now let's take you to Kumasi for the latest on the National Science and Maths Quiz, where school like Presec has made it to the semi-finals. Maxwell Agwagwa is standing by with latest.
Well, the dream to win a 7th trophy is on course for Presec Legon. They stopped Accra Academy in their tracks right in the first round when they led with 11 points. In the second round, they led with 21 points. The final nail in the coffin for Accra Academy was in the third round when Presec Legon scored 10 out of 10 in the problem of the day. Accra Academy Kojos had 0 in the problem of the day. And then round 4, round 5, and now they have ended the contest here with the highest points we've seen at the quarter-final level. A very strong indication that, yes, they are coming for the 7th trophy. So the singing will continue here. Let's speak to one of the teachers here. Okay, is this another version of your anthem? That's another version.
Another version.
That's a different version.
We will never trouble us. We will always jump fast. All my sins shall be taken away. All my sins shall be taken away. All my sins shall be taken away.
Thank you, Lord.
Our way to yours, our way. So best of Presbyterian Secondary School. Our one river to try that not to have the victory. To victory. Our motto is a solid book of confidence and love.
Well, so follow the NSMQ here on the Joy News channel for the latest, especially on the semi-finals. But that's how we wrap up today's bulletin. There's more news on myjoyonline.com. My name is Samuel Kojo. Up next is Prime Business. Good evening.